Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Hearts, and today I'll be breaking down my favorite core plays and value plays for tonight's 4-game NBA slate. Going to be one of those quicker videos, so if you guys like this, do appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Leave me a comment. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, but we do have to wait on a good amount of injury news, so these could change by the time the slate starts. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at HeartDFS. Hit that like button, and let's get into the video. For this core play and value video, I'm going to touch on some, obviously chalky plays. I think we had to go over them. We had to mention them in case some people actually don't know who they're going to be. And I'm going to touch on some value plays and some pay-ups that, should be low owned just because people are not going to want to go to them, especially in that later game. That's a little hint for you guys. But we'll get there in a second. I think the first game we had to look to is that Orlando and Indiana game. Going to be a great game to stack, but the biggest news, I guess for Indiana side is Halliburton, and for the Orlando side is Wendell. But we'll just focus on Indiana for right now. Halliburton, obviously the main guy, ton of usage, leader of their team, the absolute beast that he is questionable because he hurt his ankle in the last few minutes of the game, had to be helped off. So that's the huge news we're waiting on, because if he's out, you're going to want to look to McConnell and Nembhard, at least one of them, if not both of them, depending on who starts. I'm assuming it's McConnell. That's what kind of everyone is assuming. McConnell, if he's going to start, should see at least 30 minutes. He's very, very, very solid. He's not going to go out there and score like 15, 20 points. He could have one of those outlier games, but I kind of expect around that 10 mark. But he should see a huge, huge bump in the assists, rebounds category. He's very solid at getting steals as well. So 30 minutes from McConnell at 3,800. Going to be the best play on the slate. Obviously, he's going to be like 60, 70, 80% owned if he's starting, but I think it's one of those guys you have to plug and play, lock him in, and kind of go from there. Obviously, his teammate, Nembhard, who has been starting, minutes have been ticking down. He should see, before that, when he was starting, he was seeing about 30-ish minutes. I would assume the same thing. Even if they're playing alongside each other, do think you can definitely play both of them. At least, both of them, if not, 3 Indiana Pacers, maybe even 4, depending on how it burns out. But yeah, I really like both of them. Prefer getting to TJ McConnell, but yeah, definitely keep both those guys in mind until we hear that Halliburton news, because he's going to be one of the best plays. Moving on to the Minnesota side, I think a very solid value play. He maybe should see a little bit of ownership, but Kyle Anderson, 3,900. His minutes have been pretty safe the past, 2 weeks. Since the start of the month, he's seen about 20-ish minutes. And we know that Cat and Rudy Gobert are very, very foul prone, especially going up against a big like Embiid. Even Tobias Harris could get Cat into some foul trouble. So those guys are very foul prone. That just leads to more minutes for Kyle Anderson, who's already seen about 20. He could get extended to 25, even 30 if those guys are out, as we saw versus Houston. So he's been just very productive in his normal amount of minutes. Last game, 20 minutes. He's not going to shoot the ball a ton, but 8 points, 4 rebounds, assists, 2 blocks, 3 steals. He's been pretty solid at the stocks category, the steals and blocks. So really like him. I think he makes for a great value play there at 3,900 if you need any small forward, power forward eligible. So that's huge news as well. So yeah, I think he makes for a great value play there. Should be, I guess, maybe a little bit owned, just depending on kind of how the news breaks with some of the other injury news. The next guy, I'm going to put Kyle Anderson in there real fast. The next guy we can definitely look to is obviously going to be on this Philadelphia side, and it's going to be Shake Milton. Maxey, another one of those young guards who hurt his ankle. He was on pace to absolutely destroy the slate, which is annoying because I had him, and he had 40 fantasy points basically at halftime. It was insane. But yeah, it's looking like he is going to most likely miss it. They pulled him out of the game, did MRI. He was in a walking boot after the game, so really looking like he's not good to go. And that means Shake Milton should see a good amount of minutes. Now, they will start most likely Embiid, Harris, if he's good to go. They had him out last game, but he should be good to go. Melton, I'm assuming PJ Tucker. So that's 4. And then maybe they'll start like a Thibault, or they'll start like maybe a Niang or Montrezl Harrell, because Minnesota is pretty big. So that should be the starting lineup. Even if, Shake is coming off the bench, I do think he's in line for at least 20 minutes, if not closer to 25. He's going to be aggressive. You're going to need guys to be able to score the ball. It's not going to be, it's going to be pretty hard for Philadelphia to win if it's Justin Embiid and Tobias Harris trucking the ball. DeAnthony Melton should see a good amount of usage increase there, probably closer to, I'd say 10 plus shots. But yeah, Shake Milton is going to be the main beneficiary if Tyrese Maxey's out. He saw 31 minutes off the bench, 6 to 12. Very, very productive when he's out there. It'll be interesting to see if he starts. If not, if he starts, I think he makes for an absolute lock. If he comes off the bench, I think he makes for a very, very solid play still. The minutes won't be as secure. He could go out there and only see like 20-ish minutes, but even at that price tag, I think it's worth the shot. Another one of those super chalky guards that I do think is almost a lock in today's lineup, depending on the news. The next two guys I want to touch on for this video are going to be Nurkic and Paul George. So we'll start with Nurkic, 6,700. The reason why I like him is he has not been having any ownership the past few games. The minutes have really not been there past few games. He's coming off injury, so they did ease him in. Only 15 versus the Spurs, 25 that last game versus Brooklyn. He was pretty solid when he was out there. Sometimes they just don't like closing with him. He is kind of foul prone at times. He goes out there. He's pretty, bad at defense. So Chauncey does like to bench him at times. So he's very, very risky here. But the price tag is just fantastic. The matchup against Utah is a great one. He has huge upside, as you can see, that game versus Houston, 55 fantasy points. So I think he just makes for one of those, pretty risky plays at center. Not a lot of center plays I like, obviously, besides Embiid and Cat. That's really it. I think he makes for a great play because a lot of people are want to get to Zubac over Nurkic just because they're going to see his box score. Going to see that he's kind of been all over the place when it comes to minutes. So he's obviously very risky, but I just love, buying low on that ownership, buying low on his performance, and really hoping that he gets at least his normal amount of minutes of like 33, 34, because he could obviously smash there. And at low ownership, that'd be fantastic. So really keep an eye on Nurkic and his ownership. And then Paul George. I think he makes for a fantastic play. Sorry, that's the Spurs side. Paul George, 9,800. The reason why I like this one is just because Paul George, the minutes are going to be there. He should see at least 35, maybe even more, closer to 40, depending on how the game's going. 9,800, the price tag's going to scare people away. Kawhi Leonard's back, so obviously Paul George does lose some usage, but he's had huge games along Kawhi Leonard over the course of their history. Obviously, they haven't played a ton together, but I just think, you factor in the price tag. You factor in that people usually don't like rostering Paul George. He's usually always very severely underowned. And now that Kawhi's back, that's going to keep people away even more. The price tag's going to keep people away. They're just a gross team right now to roster. So I really don't think anyone's going to be on Paul George, with Kawhi back and his just past performances. So I really think he's going to be the sneakiest play on the slate is going to be Paul George. Obviously, he does have a little bit of a low floor, but I guess there is some blowout risk depending on who on the Spurs side is able to give it a go, because we know, don't know my partners. We know Keldon Johnson's questionable. He should be good to go. Polto's questionable. Vassal's questionable. So a little bit of blowout risk, but the Clippers have kind of been bad recently. So I just think Paul George makes for a very sneaky play. And yeah, that's it. If you guys liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and we'll see how these plays kind of turn out the rest of the day with the injury news.